Yeah.
All right, excellent. I'm going to this down and basically zoom in on and talk with my dear friend Fari. Fari, thank you for the recommendation. This is fantastic. This was your idea. I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we were talking the other day, and I said, wait a minute, it's such a juicy conversation. It needs to come alive and be online so other people can get the joy of our joy and our conversation. So thank you for accepting it. That was
Oh,
wonderful.
my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we were talking a little bit before the show about freedom of choice and about the power of having permission before you talk, before you try to influence someone or try to assist them by or coach them or talk to them in a certain way. As it relates to pretty important things like life purpose and spirituality and religion and things like that. I'm not sure how many. Would you give a quick background of how much like your life story up to now that you're willing to share in public?
Oh, I'm an open book.
I know. I love it.
I have nothing hidden. Yes. So I am Fari Gunzak, married to a delicious Greg Gunzak, my hubby. And I am originally from Iran, and I left Iran at the age of 20 to England, 14 years there. I just went there to short stay and moved to America. Got stuck in England 14 years later.
Mhm.
Came to America with my British passport, and it's now 32 years in America. I've been a fitness trainer and a life coach for 30 some odd years, and 31 years perhaps. And it's gotten me to shift into more of a relationship, because everything is relationship, whether you are a boss or you are a janitor or you are a doctor, wife and a husband and a kid, and everything is a relationship. So I went through so much of that turmoil myself in life. Being that bad Persian person, because you're that girl from the Middle East, always a bad fruit. We don't want to touch her, and I had to go through so much difficulty and
Mhm.
ups and downs and so many naysayers in every aspect of life that taught me a lot. And when somebody said, where is your certifications from? It kind of pissed me off that why are they asking for certification before they want to know my knowledge? And I
Mhm.
said, I have no certification, even though I have zillions, but I said, I have no certification. I just have one PhD, and no one can take that away. And that's the PhD from the difficulties of life. And
Mhm.
that is really true, because I mean, I'm smiling at it and laughing and talking about it today, but that's exactly what it was. The difficulty of life has gotten me to have the love, to have the wisdom, to have the knowledge, to have the compassion that I have today. And cut the story short, all these years coming up to be just totally as a coach in this environment and be in the place that we were, that we met this magnificent group of ultimate coach, and you and I met, and it got us to be where we are today, to not take too long of a time to um, waste there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for that concise um, description of your life experience.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the anybody that's watching this knows who we're talking about here, who Fari is. Fari has coached and assisted with getting in shape for movies and parts, and you name it, some of the top names in Hollywood, which she will not tell you, even if you ask, because she has agreed to not to. Also, name dropping to her feels pretty inauthentic. So that's another reason she doesn't do it.
Literally. Thank you for saying that.
You're
I'm not
welcome.
them, I'm me.
That's right. That's right. So the first time I actually saw Fari, it turns out, was on the Billy Blanks title
You did it.
that Penny and I used back in the early 2000s. And I didn't know who she was, but I saw her frequently on there because she was one of the main examples of how to do this stuff, how to do these things. What's proper form look like?
Yes.
And yeah, and now I get to talk with this person that was assisting me all those years ago without my knowing who the heck she was.
Unbelievable. What are the chances in life, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's really, really quite amazing. Yeah, well, and it's such a wonderful thing, right? I have gotten to meet and talk with people in this group since the Ultimate Coach book came out that I have known about for years
Mm.
and that have blessed my life in 1,000 ways. And now I'm on like a first name basis with many of them. I got to meet, you just spent a while with Byron Katie, and you're still in process of that, right?
Yes,
I
still.
got to be on a Zoom call with her. So would you share with anything you'd like to say about that?
Oh my gosh. So we have about 15 hours. It was like, as you just kindly mentioned, I've done so many of these workshops and everything, but two workshops stayed with me forever. The one that I did with zillions of years ago with Ram Dass in
Mhm.
Hawaii, and then actually three, Wayne Dyer, that was two, and the third one was with Byron Katie, and this was 100 plus hours in 10 days. And the workshop finished, but to this day, we're still getting work from her, orders from her gladly and willingly. And we're working. I just finished one at 11:30 this morning, my time. And it's amazing how this woman, with 80-year-old woman going on 15, with the joy, with the knowledge, with everything that she had, it was like how much she opened up. When I thought I knew it all, which I never say that, but when I thought I really have learned quite a bit within this last 100 hours with her, I just realized, wow, how much I had to unlearn so I can make room to learn more and take from her, which is incredible how much it comes that it's from us, that it's in us, that it's at us, that is for us. And it's always that life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. And I never understood that. I never wanted to understand it until with this workshop that I did in the the extent of learning in this place is so humbling, number one. And number two is something that it would never walk away from you. Everything you do, you eat your food, you walk, you talk, you just think, oh, is this true? And this becomes this, at first is ridiculous and funny, but then you just become, it becomes part of you.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's something that I wish I had taken it many years ago, and I'd taken it again. They always say you did it when you needed to do it. But
Mhm.
yes, at this day and age, it was the most gratifying, eye-opening, most humbling, educating workshop I've ever done. And I
Mm.
highly recommend it.
Beautiful. Thank you. As that relates to your being, like how has that work affected who you are being in your life?
We all talk about being, isn't it? We're all the time talking about, yeah, I want to be this, I want to be that. But it's only a sentence. There's no meaning to it. It
Hmm.
was never any meaning to it until I learned about the Steve Hardison. And I
Hmm.
learned about Ultimate Coach that we both met in there, and this amazing book, which I highly recommend everybody buying it. And no, we don't get any percentage from this book if you buy it or not. I just always have to say that I don't get paid for this.
Right. Right.
It's so much learning from there. And because of Steve, I actually went to Byron Katie's course, and it was like, oh, that's what it means when Steve Hardison talks about being. Oh, I get it. So it's not just the idea of talking about it, it's like every step of the way that when you go for your walk, when you're eating your food, before it was just like eating food and just finish it and move on. But now, how can you be present in this food, eating of your food? How am I present when my brother that talks to me and I don't want to be spending time with him and I talk to, or, it's that space that we learn to create for ourselves, to be in that moment and don't rush it and move on. find yourself in that present moment, which is going deeper than that and is much vaster than that, isn't it? How would you explain it?
It is. It is an interesting question, which is why I asked you first.
I figured you put me in a deep trap, so I can say, that's all right, darling. I know you by now.
Yeah, well, so for me, being is something that once you define it, it's not that.
Exactly.
So it is, if we look at being from the perspective of the universe, from the perspective of, in my system of God, then being is something that simply is.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take it from the perspective of a planet, Earth simply is Earth. It is exactly as it is, and it is not any way that it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at it from the perspective of animals, my dog is exactly as my dog is, and that's who he's being, a dog. And he's exactly not how he is not. He shows up precisely as he is, with no fake attitudes. He's not trying to do anything. His major, so far as I can tell, he likes to eat, frolic, snuggle, and then hates bats. But he puts up with them because he loves us.
That's right.
So for humans is where being becomes this strange thing. Because there is what is so. Byron Katie says, love what is. I mean, the title of her book that I read was Loving What Is, right? Mm-hmm. And humans, we have this, because of the biology in which we are walking around, mm-hmm. we're almost never relating to reality. We're relating to our interpretation, our projection, our judgments, our stories about what is happening, about what is going on, and most importantly, about ourselves. Mm-hmm. About, I am the way I am because ... And everything that follows because is BS. It's not real, So now there are realities of physicality. About, a person who doesn't have two legs is not going to be playing in the NBA, most likely. A person who has a limited faculty with a certain portion of their body will have those limitations. And the stories that we have are the things that mostly keep us from being who we can be here, So in other words, when in the presence of being, I am here, I am now, I am present, and I get to be whoever I declare myself to be. And what I mean by that is declare, meaning create who I am. And I can do that both in my listening to who I am, my self-acknowledgement. I created a series of statements that are my constitution, that from which I constitute myself. And they are statements that sound like this: I am cultivating a deep sense of enjoyment of what is in every moment. And then I'm being that. And when I'm not being that, I stop it, forgive myself, and step back into being that. So that's the how to do being. The experience of being is aliveness, connection, joy. It's presence when there's pain. It's being present to instead of hiding from the pain. It's being willing to love people who are not lovable. It's being willing to love myself when I'm not lovable. It's being willing, and when I am lovable, I'm pretty lovable. And it's all of these things, and that is like scratching the surface of the possibility of being. Sonia Ramirez just put in that I think what her experience of being is: walking hand in hand with self and God. To find self is to sit in silence. And it's a beautiful
I
expression.
don't get any of it. Well, that doesn't matter. I am on my, okay, now if I have my phone on this side, then I can see it. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. And then she says, I am. So that's kind of a long answer there, but what did you get from that, or where would you like to go with that? Where would you like to riff with that?
No, there is no long or short answers, I don't think. I just, whatever satisfies the person to come from their heart, that's what matters. It's when you're not faking it, where you're not saying, and we're raised to say and do things that others like it. When we were as a kid, then my mother used to always say that. I'm sure every other mother just said, see, they're watching you, look at what they say. No, they're not going to like you if you don't do this and that. They're not going to like you. No, do you want a candy? Then you do this and that. It was like always watch what they are saying and how they look at you. And we learn, we grow up to become something more than what we want to be, which we're not being. We're doing. We're being something else that somebody else wants us and appreciates us. Like my mother used to say that. And I said that to my other client. And then he goes, she's French. And she goes, that's exactly what her French mother in the heart of Switzerland, there's Swiss French, was saying. That it was just, no, do you want your father to like you? Then you have to do this and that. Don't you want your brother to hit you? Then do this and so you never learn and you're never educated to become who you are supposed to be. You're conditional. Don't do that so your father doesn't beat you up, so your mother doesn't do this and that and that. And we learn and we become that. And we're so far away from the reality of who we are. Just because you mentioned the name, I say that, yes, I worked with one of these celebrities. One of them was Billy Blanks, and I learned a lot from him. Of course, it was a very interesting experience to be one of his trainers and teachers for years and years. But I remember, because I was always learned that, oh, don't do that because they don't like you. My arm, I had fracture on my arm, on my bone. My arm was on a sling, and I was in there to punch with one arm and kick, because what if he doesn't like me and he kicked me out of the thing? Or my leg, my knee, the stitches burst open, but they were video shooting, and they called me and they said, you need to come there, because it wasn't taught to me what it is to have a self-love, what it was to have a self-respect. Be so others like you, do so others respect you, but you as a human being, you're not even allowed to be. You don't exist. So fast forward very many years later, going through all these relationships that I've been, that's why we're called the relationship coaches. And the relationship, I just want to explain that for everyone to know, is not just between a man and a woman. A boss has to have a relationship with the employee, employees with the other one, a sister and a brother, a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, whatever. It's all of a relationship that builds this world to become a better world. And when I didn't know what do I stand for as a human being, then I allowed other people to tell me what to do. And I allowed it to be abused. When I am allowing myself to be abused, I have nothing to do with being. I'm doing. I'm a human being of doing, far from being. And yes, I learned that much later in life. Just about a year and a half ago, from Steve Hardison, that I worship the ground this man walks. I mean, I've never had the pleasure of having him to coach me for $200,000, but he's giving me so much more that is just like unbelievable. How blessed am I? And just to take that, what is being, that has gotten me to be more centered to who I am, be a better person, learn to appreciate because of being, to be a loving wife to my husband, to be a loving daughter, but all of that between Byron Katie and Steve Hardison, that I learned these two combination, these two powerhouses came in to teach me first how to learn to land in my land as Fari. And when I become a better person to myself, and now I can be a better service. Is that the same or similar? How's that for you?
That's beautiful. I love it. For one of the things that I heard you distinguish in what you said was that as humans doing, not humans being, we are always trying to mold our circumstances to the ideal circumstances, right? And when you're being, it is outside the realm of circumstances.
Correct.
And when and to a human who is doing, that is very risky. That can occur as extremely unsafe. To a person who is being, to a human being, it's like, well, of course I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. Of course I'm going to stay. It doesn't matter who comes and says you should do this thing that's against your conscience. You're going to follow your heart. You're going to be who you are. And that's extremely powerful.
And then try to teach that or create that with your clients, that they are just normal human beings like you and I, and they've always been doing. They have not been being, if it makes any. And now we're trying to teach them to redirect themselves and say, okay, you've been going south for the longest time. Let's turn around and find your way in a much cooler, better environment that is that BEING, which is less painful. Forever, we all are being taught how to be a people pleaser. Yeah, it's something else to be of service.
Yes.
I've always loved to all my life. I was of service. I remember I was a kid and I think I had a very heavy auntie and her daughter or herself was sick, my mother says, and something went, and I just went out of a blue sky. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I turned the candle on and I brought it by her head. And they said, what are you doing? The power had gone up. And I said, well, she's sick in bed. She needs some light if she needs to move. And I think this light will help her. My mother said, you were always ready to be of service to people because I always wanted to help, But then that helping, also it became that I learned not to have a voice and say, no, I want it or I don't want it. That turned it to be a people pleaser.
Yeah. Oh,
It's a massive distinguish between being of service and being a people pleaser.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's
a disease, as Oprah Winfrey says it, because she actually calls it is a dis-ease. And is a disease that they look at us and we're not wanted. So we do anything that there is just to be accepted, just to be seen, just to be loved. No part of being a pleaser has anything to do with being. Nothing to do with being. And
I mean, being a pleaser, one can be a pleaser. It's just not a very empowering way to be.
Yeah, well, if that's what I always say when I'm coaching, I said, you're being a pleaser, that means you're being somebody else.
Right.
It's another outfit you're wearing as a pleaser. You're being that. It's like I'm being that clown. But when I take my clown mask off and my outfit on, oh, there is Fari. But she's half alive because she's been living being somebody else.
Right.
She's been trying to impress others by demolishing herself constantly.
Yeah.
So when you keep on doing that, what does it happen? The anger and the frustration raise up.
Right. Well, and there's anger, frustration, depression, loss of self. I was listening to a thing Gabor Mate said about ADHD. I love the guy too. He was talking about ADHD and he said it's not necessarily like a disorder. It is a response to that when you were a child and if you were constantly in fight or flight mode, but you couldn't fight and you couldn't fly. What does the mind do? Distracts itself.
Yes. I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Mhm.
He had a workshop, Gabor Mate, and I was there, and he goes, I'm not saying he's not existing, because he is one himself.
Right.
It exacerbates its situation
Mhm.
for you as a child. And
Mhm.
for me as a child in the household that I was born, it fed my ADHD to its worst. And I even didn't know I was ADHD. I didn't know what ADHD was,
Sure.
until I got in a very bad car accident that I was the driver and I caused the accident. And
Mhm.
I was 34 when I came to America. So that happened at the age of 36.
Mhm.
And my best friend forever went brain dead. And that's when they sued me at UCLA here, they had me 6 days with all these monitors and everything on me. And then they checked and they said, you are ADHD and dyslexia. And I said, what is that? I never knew about it.
Mhm.
And they said, yeah, they're finding this out. And I was 34, I'm 66 now. That was 32 years ago. I was diagnosed with it, and it was just new then. They were just discovering it,
Right. Right.
So all of that got me to be even more of a pleaser.
Mhm. I've got problems, therefore I must, in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order for the right people to like me, so I can make money and live and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, don't hate me. Don't
And
hate
not
me.
hate you.
Allow
Right.
me in. Let me in. Look
Right.
what I do for you. I'm a good person. Let
Mm.
me in, no matter what. It doesn't matter I have stitches. I let it burst, but let me kick and keep me going with my job. It's okay, but keep me alive. Let me have the income that I'm earning, Mr.
Yeah.
Billy Blanks. Let my knee explode. Doesn't matter. It's just how much I didn't have that self-love, self-respect. That's why I'm so big and huge on it, just like you are, about self-love, self-compassion, self-respect. And the minute I see this morning, I was training my client who's a very successful doctor. And she's saying, I said, you are Dr. So-and-so out there, but who are you in your house? Non-existent.
Mm.
And that's why I push people. And I said, you've got to understand, we're all coming from a place of love.
Mhm.
How do you become that love? Unless you learn to unlearn by being the pleaser, by being that frustrated person. Being a pleaser has caused me so much anger.
Mhm.
And within the last year and a half too, I've calmed down so much more for all that I've learned from this group that I've been with, Ultimate Coach, and the learning. I walked out on my fabulous husband. The whole world would dream to have my husband for one night, one day. This man is just the joy of life, really, truthfully.
Mhm.
And I walked up to him and I said, I want to get divorced from you. Because I was living on anger and tantrum.
Yeah.
And that's why today I can help others. I've lived it. When the lady said, what's your certification? I said, none. I have certification, PhD from life,
Mhm.
because I've walked the walk. I've
Mhm.
suffered the suffer that life has had for me. And I am sure you in your own way, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's such an interesting point, the the way that people become great is through being not great.
Amen.
It's not, there's no fast track to becoming Steve Hardison. You have to go through what Steve Hardison went through and be him while you're going through it to become who Steve Hardison is. You have to be Fari as she is leaving Iran, going to England. Suddenly Iran is a different country and she can't go back. And then she comes to the US and
To
makes,
this day, I can't go back.
yeah.
The last time I visited Iran must have been 35 years ago,
Oh my goodness.
36 years ago.
Wow.
Go back. There is no going back. They
Mhm.
kill you. Very simple.
Mm.
So it's not choice, it's a force. In 45 years of my life, I've lived 3 different continents,
Mhm. Mhm.
not by choice, by
Right.
force. But thank God I was forced to be in these fabulous places. America, England, and I am so grateful to be in this dumpster of California. I'm just kidding.
Dumpster fire of California.
I mean, it's a tough life, isn't it? But really, it's just that what you make out of it, wherever you go,
Right.
whatever you do, it's what do you become? It's all a matter of a choice. I could have been a drug addict. I could have been a prostitute, for that matter, because somebody smokes and they love the cigarette. I always loved sex. I could have literally become a prostitute. I could have been somebody that loves gambling. So, there are so many choices, but my drug of choice has always been working out. Always. I am sad and I'm mad, I work out. I'm frustrated, I work out. I just finished yoga right before our meeting today. And God for me is like, God is something. I love you. Yeah. That's brilliant. That's my weight, water right now, But it's really amazing. Like God and exercise for me, they go hand in hand. And there is and I am within this zone to keep my sanity, to keep I get up, I say God. In the middle of the day, I say God. I go to bed, I say God. I get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, I said, God is just like, is my bone, is closer than my skin to me. And I am so grateful that I've always had that in me. And I strongly believe that I don't remember much from my father because, as I said, he was much older than us and he never had any relationship with us. I was always afraid of him. So if the father was in this massive house that we had, he was there, we'd be running the other side of the house because we'd be afraid of him. But I strongly believe that my father was a spiritual person, but he didn't know what to do with it. And that's why he became such a tough man, which I complained about it for years and years, and I'm now grateful for it. Because it has made me to become who I am today. A lot of good point. And that's what we help the others to see, the goodness at the peak of the bitterness and darkness, isn't it?
It is such a powerful thing. And who you're being shifts the way that you experience life, and you just said it. For years, you felt like your father was, you told stories about what a jerk your dad was. And then I'm not sure it's exactly what you said. That's
yes. That plus.
And then, exactly. And now you're grateful for him.
Yeah. I mean, I used to cry so much. I think one time at the beginning of it, I was talking to Cordelia, our friend, because nobody was here. What's Cordelia? Another beautiful soul. I love her. And I was really crying so hard and talking about my father. And like many months later, she goes, what? You're talking about your father with a smile on your face? What's going on? I said, it's called revelation. It's called learning better. It's called unlearning so I can learn more. And all of that is a blessing to learn that for as long as I was busy beating up on my father, I was actually beating up on my own soul.
Yeah.
There was no expansion. And once I learned, it's like you come to this, you're going on a freeway and all of a sudden in the middle of the freeway, you're not expecting it. Boom, there's a massive red traffic light and you have to stop. So I put my foot on a brake and I stopped and I said, oh, look back and see how much goodness there has been in that. And now I rejoice. And my father's been so tough. And I'm sure it's had those ways. Do you have a memories of good old days that you can say you had to turn around on that? You had a shift because of your being? Do you have those moments?
I do. I remember, I actually want to ask you a question. So I'm going to answer this and then I want to ask you a question that kind of went with what you just said there. And by the way, hi, Elizabeth Forrest. Thank you for being here with us. Glad to see
Hi
you.
guys. I don't see you, but thank you for being here.
So for me, there's this phenomenon, which is that when we humans are faced with a crisis and we do something that occurs to us in that moment to do, and it works, at a certain level, there's a temptation to always do that. So if that is a hammer, everything is a nail. So when I served a LDS mission in Russia, and at one point I had a coworker, a companion there that I detested. I could not stand this guy. And I had experienced some depression. I experienced enormous anger. And enough anger to the point where I actually crested from being kind of just a people pleaser to being, screw you, I'm going to do what I think is right, and you can't tell me what to do. And when that happened, my mission shifted. See, I was standing up for myself at that point, right? And I had stood up for myself before, but not in that context. I felt like I had to do what I was expected to do, and that was all there was to do. And I have agreements, but this was even beyond agreements, right? This was, how should I be, as opposed to how shouldn't I be as I fulfill these agreements, okay? And anger worked for me because it was so much more powerful than shame or apathy, which is kind of where I had been operating there's a scripture in one of my holy books that I follow, which says, what does it say? Something about humility. Let's see. God gives men weaknesses that they may be humble, and my grace is sufficient for those who humble themselves before me, for I will make weak things become strong to them, basically. So I thought that meant that I had to humble myself by cutting myself down every time, talk bad about myself, and then eventually God would make me strong. And so I'd done that for 19, almost 20 years at that point in my life. And then I went, no, we're done. Now, that worked great. When I got home, see, my dad and my brothers used to always wrestle me, and I'd be very careful not to hurt anyone because I really didn't want to hurt anyone. So they could easily beat me in wrestling. And I came home and I was like, oh no. And they were scared, like it scared them. They were like, David, what happened to you? You're not the kind, loving pushover that we like.
See, we have to go through all of that to get to this space.
Exactly. But and then I married Penny, and I was still operating from the place of power was anger. Now, Penny, I am so grateful for Penny, Fari.
I saw her last time. She's beautiful too.
She's gorgeous, and she loves me when I'm not lovable. When I'm mad, when I'm angry, I'm not. It doesn't occur to me like I'm all that lovable, Fari.
But darling, it's the two of us. You can make that the two of us. The devil.
Okay, me and Fari, when we get angry, we're gonna get pissed off. We're not fun to be around. It's tough to love ourselves or anybody else.
Watch out, those that they want us to be their
right.
coaches. No, I'm kidding.
Kind. Brimstone. Kind.
It comes out. Yeah, exactly that. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You had a question. What was that?
Well, hold on. So I wanted to answer. So basically, the anger was this thing that was the good old days, and I had to let go of that and discover somebody who was creating from a source that did not remove energy from me.
Correct. Wow.
And so that was, the way that Dr. David Hawkins said, it's power versus force, right? I discovered the power of force, which was way better than the power of, just taking it and pleasing people. But it was limiting me in the ability that I had to make a difference with people and myself, to where, until I could let that go and operate from love, love became this power source. There's no end to it, and it doesn't cost me anything.
Right.
So that's an example of what that was, of where I had a good old days and I let go of it to bring something new in. Now, the question I had for you is, you've talked a little bit about, and Ryan Morris says, I love you even when you think you're unlovable, Dave Orton. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. And you met Penny, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Ryan the Lion Morris. Oh my goodness. So what I wanted to ask you was when you talked about discovering God, so working out and God, those have been the two things that have been great power sources for you in your life, or ways to deal with things.
Mhm.
Would you talk to me a little bit about how you experience God, how you experience the divine, like what sensations you have? What is the somatic experience of the divine for you?
I was 8 or 9 years old. I was very, very sad kid, very sad and very heavy. I was such a fat child at home because our home was toxic, where I was born and raised. One day, when I was at the peak of my sadness as a kid, I had a dream. I'm coming to the street where my parents lived, and then there's this massive cloud, but it's a face of a human, but it's like an older man, but it's a massive crowd is looking at me, and I'm running out of the house. I'm running away. I'm running away, and this massive cloud walked toward me. It just from the sky went down toward me like this, and I'm this kid here. And as it comes towards me, opens his mouth and starts blowing on me, and lots of turquoise and pearl comes out of his mouth towards me, and he goes, "I will always look out for you. Don't run."
Mm.
I was 7, 8 years old, probably. And that was my dream. Well, I went back home. I woke up and I told my mom, and I said, I had a dream. And my mother goes, "God doesn't have a face." That was, but this was always, God doesn't have a face. That always stayed with me.
Mhm.
And every step of the way that I went out of Iran, when I left Iran, nothing had happened in Iran. Shah of Iran was in power. I was exactly like this, except I had zillion amount of black hair then. I was a young kid, and I was but massive girl. I was so fat. It wasn't overweight. I was a fat kid. And when I went to England and everything that was happening for me towards me and all that, I've always felt there's this thing with me that I was raised calling it as God. There is no religion, and is, by the way, is like I just use bullshit, so because it's really a bullshit when they say, "Oh, the Muslim God is different." No, in Italian they have a different name for God. In Greek they have a different name for God, and in Islamic way they call God Allah. God is God. There's not 900 different God. God is God, but that's the way they called it. And I was born in a non-practicing Muslim family. And I was raised to just always hear the name of God. But the more I got alone and lonely in England, the more I felt this presence that is there with me. I didn't know what it was. It got me more away from the religion, but it got me more in towards the spirituality. And I always felt that. And I really must say that to you. One thing I worship more than anything in my husband, I feel when this man is around me, I feel the presence of God more than just the guy with me. That's why I worship him so much, because he's not by any form of fashion. He was raised in this Catholic school, private Catholic school, and my husband runs away. You talk about any religion to him, he just walks away. But he's this loving being that is a bundle of God. And that's what I see, that's what I feel, because I keep on calling on him. Look, if I didn't talk to you, you wouldn't answer me back, right? You wouldn't be sitting here talking to me today. Right. So it's like when you call his name or her name, whatever, its name, whatever people want to call it, for me, it's always been his name. But however you call, that's why I have these things at the back in here. That doesn't mean anything except when I see this face. In Christianity, they have monkey that it says, I don't see, I don't talk. And I said, instead of having an ugly monkey picture there, I have this beautiful picture in there. And it reminds me, I need to be serene. I coach sitting here. I talk sitting here, because these pictures behind. These are paintings. These paintings, they calm me down. They put me in my place of being one with God. To me, that's my being one with the source. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. I think I'd like to dive a little deeper, if you're willing.
Oh, my love, sure.
Into how do you experience your own divine nature, that part of you that is part of God or part of the divine? How do you experience that? Like when you go in and you reach out to your husband and you feel this presence, you know, his, not just him, but also this additional power, this additional presence. How do you feel that? Like, where does it show up, like as a sensation, like a tingling in your body, or does it show up as just a knowing? Does it show up with, can you see? What is it that shows up for you as far as like that goes?
It's a joy feeling. I am jolly without jumping up and down. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a joy that I feel. Like when we're a wife and a husband, for the love of God. But when I sit next to him, I don't go and sit on the other side. I have to sit next to him. It's his clothes that rubs against my clothes, right? But it gives me this satisfaction, this joy, that I feel these two, female and masculine God, are now one. It's this joy that I feel. I was talking to somebody yesterday that I was asking for help about possibility of maybe talking about some translating a book or something like this. And I was asking help from this person, like how is the procedure of, like, translation, and because it's a different language, Farsi and all of that. But the way she responded to me, she got me away from my joy. And I thought I was being questioned on my joy, which is my spirituality, is my godliness. And before I lose it for that person, I just got off the phone. That's when I lose it. When I feel my joy, my oneness with God is being questioned.
Got it.
Does it answer you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. I actually wanted to share something where I was that guy in the past. So I was at this dinner. This was, 10 plus years ago. And it was a dinner celebrating the second anniversary of the business of a friend of mine. And this guy and I had done a lot of landmark work together. And he invited me to talk to a particular guy who had not done landmark. And what he said was, maybe he'll do landmark from doing this. And what I heard, see, that's what he said. That was reality. What I heard or projected, which was not reality, my story was, Dave, you've got to get this guy you've got to shock him enough to get him into the landmark forum. And I was like, sir, yes, sir. And he's like, what? I didn't issue an order. I don't know what you're saying. I didn't say that literally, but.
No.
And this guy started talking, and I asked him about his experience at the Landmark Forum, and he said, I was going to go to the forum, but instead I went to a concert because I studied the bass, and I was like, I smell BS. My BS meter just went off.
Yeah.
And the entire room stopped and looked at just the two of us. And and we talked for a bit, and he became very offended that I was questioning decisions he made 30 years ago to go to a concert instead of the good he could have had from going to the Landmark Forum. And the funny thing, Fari, is that my intention, the source of my action, was a stand for the success of this gentleman. A stand, it was from love. But the expression of that was not at all loving in the way that he received love. I didn't know him well enough to have that kind of a conversation. He didn't trust me enough to have that kind of a conversation. And later on that evening, so my friend sent somebody else to manage me, to keep me from causing any more disturbances. and he I later on told the guy I apologized for being an a-hole to him. And I said, that's, I see that I've upset you and I'm sorry. And he said, well, that's a start, and I didn't have this guy didn't know me from Adam. To him, I was just a guy in a diner. I was not somebody who was trying to serve God by helping this man, So when you've just shared this story about this person that you wanted to stop before a blow up, before you got to a point where you were going to be doing something that wasn't who you really are. I really appreciated that, because in that case, I didn't get the signal until I had already knocked all the toys over.
Well, I was very close to get there, because once we've lived the life of being an angry person, being just like you said before. I love what you said. When you were angry and yelling, you thought that's power.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the same. I thought being powerful is being yelling and screaming. And yesterday, before I just see that she is taking me to that path of me getting to being that angry person, I just said, I drew the line and said, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not helping me.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped myself, because I can see I can get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't want give her the I don't know whether it's to give her the power or give her the time of a day that I would go back to where I don't want to be anymore.
Right.
Step away from all of that.
Right.
It was only a couple of nights ago that I was really devastated over something. And instead of banging and bashing and doing things that I used to do, I just sat and I cried.
Mm.
I cried and I just said, God, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
And thank God I have this man by my side.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way he approaches me, my husband, and talks to me and rubs my back and listens to my tears, and he talks to me, I swear to goodness, my hand up to the Lord, the way he was talking to me. And he goes, this is a guy that is in no form of fashion wants to have anything to do with religion, because he's been burnt in the past growing up,
Right.
But he's just talking to me, he goes, God is with you. God is walking the way. And I said, he's talking about God. This moment, he is being God.
Mm-hmm.
And I choose be that loving person that wants to be connected with God at all time and doesn't want to be what she used to be, because my being is forming differently now. And I want to stay with this BEING, that I am frustrated and angry, but I want to keep it. Instead of bursting out, I cry.
Mm-hmm.
And my client says, oh, you cry too? I said, my goodness, I'm a human being. I'm only human. Coaches need a coach. And I said that the other day to you. I said, an eye doctor doesn't operate on their own eye. They have an eye doctor. A dentist has a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
We coaches have coaches. We need coaches. I have 2 coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only human. My tears are my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I cry instead of having the rage and wanting to be mad and being angry and all of that? I don't want to be angry. I choose to be, but don't be angry. Oh, I just got Ryan in here. Oh, I just see it says Ryan Morris mentioned, but it doesn't say what he mentioned. But anyway.
Okay. What he said was Fari Gonzalez and her husband agreed to adopt me, with smiley faces afterwards.
That's true. We did. We have a child, babe. So yeah, it's a blessing, but it really is just it's that simple to get. I have a client who has, I don't know, 90, 100 full-time employees, so high up there with his business and his job, but he's one bundle of anger and frustration. He's got a very nice demeanor, super polite. He became my client at the age of 38. He just turned 58 this last. super powerful, super delightful man,
Mhm.
and he goes, Fari, when you talk to me, you remind me to just need to drop my guards. They haven't served me well,
Mhm.
and that's all what we're here to do, to teach everyone what we have learned in a hard way. And I always say, I am here to coach people so they don't have to go through my painful path.
Mhm.
There are very many ways of reaching to whatever our goal is, but anger should not be one of it, because I've lived it. It hasn't served me.
Yeah.
Actually, it hindered me at some point from getting what I wanted to get.
Yeah.
And you're saying the same thing for you too.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. There's I love what you said about, just crying and feeling your feelings all the way through and being with them. There's a, a book that I love called Dune. And I was introduced to this in high school. I've read it many, many times. And and there's a great movie. I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, if you like movies, but there's a really good, well-made movie that just came out a couple of years ago. And then there's one from 1984. And what I at one point there's a woman that comes, a Bene Gesserit witch comes to and tests him. And what happens is he puts his hand into this pain inductor, and she causes the pain to start. And if he withdraws his hand, she'll end his life. And he starts to say this thing, and this is what he says: I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing, only I will remain. And the reason I love that is because that when I feel things all the way through, they dissipate like the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
They dissipate like fog on a sunny, bright day.
Mm-hmm.
But if I resist them, if I fight them, if I try and push them down or hide them, then they come back and fight me later on and make problems in my body.
Exactly that. Exactly that. That's why I run to the gym.
Yeah.
If I can't go to the gym, I put my yoga mat out.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing in the world. The best thing in the world. I highly recommend it to everybody. If you don't have a gym, if you don't have a chance to go out, buy a yoga mat and do yoga at home. And yoga is not a religion.
Right.
Yoga is just a beautiful cleansing way of putting your mind, your body, and your soul together. That's it. Because
Yeah.
I know that in some Christianity, in Christian churches, they say, "Oh, yoga is a cult and is a religion." It's not at all. It's a total
Right.
cliche. It's a
Yeah.
biggest bullshit I ever had. No, yoga is another way of bringing peace in you. So working yesterday, I ran to the gym, and my God, I was pumping up iron like crazy. And I came home, I was serene.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were doing the book reading that we have in this group that you and I are, and I
Yeah.
wanted to be serene. So I did that. I worked out. I came back, and I was once again back, because when I lift weights, when I do the pickleball, when I do the yoga and all of that, I am out of this body of mine. I don't exist here. It's the same thing that I say, a person that goes to the church will get the same satisfaction that the person that is in the gym, or the person that is painting, or the person that is on a horseback riding, or the one that is swimming out there. It's all the same. Your heart and soul are coming together.
Mm.
And that's what I love to preach and teach.
That's beautiful. I love that. I I was going to say that I have a good friend, that Olga Kampora. She
I know her very well.
yeah, she did yoga. That was how she introduced people to God in a godless country. At the time, it was Soviet Czechoslovakia, and that was how she found God, was through yoga, and how she shared that with other people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yoga is amazing. My husband was the biggest runner. He's a retired deputy sheriff. So they used to run from LA to Vegas in like 14 hours, and
Oh
they
my
would
gosh.
shift, and they were like, he was a runner forever. And when he met me and then he started doing yoga, now sometimes I see I'm working and he's put the mat down and he's doing his own yoga, and he goes, it's just like amazing. Whatever happens, because I'm doing yoga. And he didn't need to be serene because he's just calm and collected, but it's just so nice to see that he's liking the principle behind yoga, that it comes into your heart and soul. So we can go on talk forever about stuff like that, you and I. It's
We
like
could.
1 hour we're going on. Well, we should do this more often because it's fun.
It is fun.
It's
Okay, well, we have used up our time. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I just love for everyone to know that Dave Orton and I are the best coaches. I'm kidding.
I agree with that. We are the best coaches for the people that resonate with us. Absolutely.
That's right. And we are here to serve you, to serve the world. And we both have learned so much in life. And it really is a shame not to have us as your coaches, basically. And perhaps, I don't know, we have to talk and see if we can agree with that. Dave and I will be doing, maybe, hopefully, we can make an appointment, think of a Zoom registration, and we can come, and then you can come up with your questions. What do you think, Dave?
Sure, let's do that.
That would be a great thing. And then we can get people to come in and let's talk and let's share and let's make this place a better world for us to live, isn't it?
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much.
And I love you, and I thank you for your time. You're a delightful. I kept on saying brother, and then I thought, the kid is young enough to be my child. So I take that back. My elder son has that.
That works. That works great.
Right, yeah. So we hope to get back. We hope to be here to give you more love and attention and help to get out of your misery, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's to experience aliveness through choosing consciously the being that you're being. And
Amen.
that's who we are, and that's what's possible for all of us. Fari, thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful. And thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you again soon. Be well, guys. Bye-bye.
Well, bye-bye.